Oh, how times change. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do mean to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, I like to yap. I like to yap a lot. Like a lot. Like a lot. Like I'd be yapping a hot minute or two. Being generous to my yapping capacity. I do like to yap. So thusly, the link to the original video and to Lumiere's channel will be in the description down below. So please, go check out the original video, go check out Lumiere. Fantastic JJK gun creator, amazing editing. He has amazing editing choices. He also uses, I think it's called JJK Battlegrounds. I don't know, I don't play Roblox, but I do recognize the art style, I think, of the footage he sometimes uses, and I think it's really, really cool. So, overall, he speak. So please go check him out in the description down below. And that's because I like the app. So if you want to see this video raw, uncut, without me pausing every 2 seconds, because I promise you I'll be pausing every 2 seconds, go check it out. But on top of that, let's quickly talk about the concept of what if Gojo fought Sukuna after being unsealed. Now, if we were to go back in time, I actually have made a video on this before. Me, myself, and I. And it was, I believe, still in the middle of the Gojo versus Sukuna battle. And I was confident, absolutely certain in the idea that Gojo would bend Sukuna over and give him the most vicious, glorious, legendary, and juicy backshots that this world has ever seen. And also he'd one-shot Kenjaku on the side, because Kenjaku would die as an after effect of the repercussions of their battle. Because I was thinking, well, it's just 15 finger Sukuna, who's 5 fingers weaker, because it was back before I had my whole idea of the fingers not mattering, and then, or the fingers mattering, and then I thought the fingers didn't matter for a while, but then that Gege statement came out, and the fingers do matter. So I was like, it's 15 finger Sukuna. Gojo's already showing relativity, if not dominance, over a 20 finger Sukuna, and you top that juicy little tidbit off with the fact that our glorious, legendary, juicy, scrumbly Emphasis King Gojo should win all domain classes, and if they're already relative at 20 fingers, and obviously the fingers have to matter, then a 15 finger Sukuna who's 25% weaker than the current amazing, legendary, juicy, scrumbly Emphasis King Gojo would give Sukuna backshots. This is what you're already doing. It's gonna be light. Now, my thoughts have changed for a couple reasons. Number one, we don't actually know what finger count this Sukuna was at. There isn't much time that passes between Megana becoming Megana and the freeing of Gojo. There actually isn't that much time, because we still have the whole month time skip of training for our cast and crew for the Shinjuku Showdown. So there is that. So we have no idea when that little scene with Arame is. Heck, it could have literally been right after. It could have been right before the bath for all we know. He may have eaten the fingers, eaten the mummy, and then hopped right into the bath and then went and fought Yorozu. We don't know. So it could have been a 20 finger Sukuna that was here already. So there's that, because the fingers do matter, so clearly he could have been at full power here anyway. But on top of that, to make the situation even more freaky and complicated, if you look at it, if you reread the Gojo vs Sukuna fight, which I have at this point, and you let Sukuna fight a little bit more intelligently, and you let him use domain amp a little bit more, and he quickly pops Raga in the shadows or something like that to adapt to Gojo's Unlimited Void, and the idea that Gojo may have only come with the idea of small ball right on the fly anyway, so like the month training didn't really do much for him except allow him to punch Megami better. It's entirely possible that Gojo still actually loses here for a variety of reasons. There's one, the more optimal Sukuna strategy, aka Sukuna sees Kenjaku nearby, knows he needs to keep up a binding vow or whatever promise he made to Kenjaku, and thusly decides to fight Gojo seriously and spam DA and hold it down. Remember, this Sukuna already knows the weakness of a limited void anyway, so he knows to stay in contact with Gojo to avoid a limited void anyway, but on top of that, he could use DA and make sure that his domain never shatters. Never, ever. Just never, ever shatters. Because it'd then be open barrier versus small barrier. And remember, at any point, the only reason Gojo ever broke Sukuna's barrier was at the very last second when he wasn't using DA throughout the majority of their interactions, as he needs to adapt for Mahoraga. If he's not doing that, he never needs to turn off DA, and Gojo's never doing enough damage to Sukuna before that. Also, in this timeline, Sukuna does not get the lead off purple. He doesn't get he doesn't have to eat that, which he did have to eat in the original timeline, which did eat away discursed energy amounts, force him to regenerate, destroy his cloak. Like, it did jack him up quite a bit at first. And sure, he may still need to summon Raga in the shadows. We don't know how he did it, but he put Raga above Megami Soul somehow. Could have been sitting there the entire time. Could have been done right before the battle. Presumably, whichever one it was, it could be there, and he could summon it again, and we could legit just get a run back of the battle as we see it. But this is a Gojo without the month period of training. This is a Sukuna possibly still at 20 fingers, or with relative stats. And Gojo would likely lose eventually. It could be a much higher battle of attrition, maybe, But if Sukuna fights smarter or just runs the battle the exact same way he did in canon, he still eventually gets Raga. He still eventually summons Ahito. And he still eventually beats Gojo. So, like, ultimately, the best benefit this would have is actually none. Because Yuji wouldn't have the soul book, Sukuna kills Gojo, and then they lose. So, like, I think Gojo holding back now and waiting that extra month so Yuji could get his training, so Yuta could get his training and more techniques, so Hana could lend the arm, so Inumaki, I guess, could lend the arm that I don't know how he kept after Shibuya. Like, essentially, so Inumaki could prep the cursed speech, so Kenjaku's technique could be acquired by Yuta, all that. I think ultimately Gojo actually did make the right decision, where before I was getting on his case horrifically for letting Kenny, especially, but Kenny and Sukuna both go free for an entire month to prep as much as they wanted. I now think, just based on how the Gojo versus Sukuna fight went, the context behind it, and the general juicy scrumbly emphasis backshots that our glorious King Satoru Gojo could receive from Sukuna if he doesn't have them on training and isn't prepared to punch Megami and all that stuff. Yeah, I think it's still bad. I still don't really see Gojo winning here. Unless the one way I'll give Gojo winning is if you go with my old argument that I made all the way back in that video and say, well, he's 5 fingers less, because we don't know when he ate the fingers, but he probably ate them after the Gojo unsealing. It's a 50-50 on whether either he did or he didn't. He may be at 20 fingers here, he may not be at 20 fingers here. But, that being the case, he could be at 15 fingers, 75% weaker. Gojo already showed some relativity, even if you want to argue Sukuna was messing around or holding back a bit. Like Gojo says in 236. So, you nerf Sukuna by 25%, you buff. You don't have any debuffs on Gojo. He just doesn't know how to punch Megami as well. He still comes up with the small ball concept on the fly. He beats Sukuna a whole lot quicker. Then the only issue is you get Heian era Sukuna versus Gojo. Possibly a Heian era Sukuna with World Slash, possibly not. But even then, a full refresh against a probably already fatigued Gojo, even if that Sukuna still is only at 75% power, it's a full absolute refresh. He'd probably still win eventually in that scenario. Even no Raga. Because, once again, he would just fight. Indefinitely, and it depends on if Gojo takes brain damage. But essentially, I'm talking a whole bunch of hypotheticals. This is Lumiere's video. Let's not waste any more time, and let's hop right into it.
A hella Oro gets unsealed, and bro doesn't waste any time to get into action. Gojo is now hella orified and back on his smoke demon arc. As he's about to eliminate Kenjaku, the king of curses intervenes. Gojo and Sukuna clash. Gojo now realizing Sukuna is in Megami's body. The hype at this point is insane. But Sukuna and Gojo both just agree to fight another day, which is another one of those moments that leaves us wondering, what if Gojo fought Sukuna after being unsealed? And in this video, we will be going over that exact scenario. So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into it.
That is still one of the most hilarious Gojo panels ever. Don't get me wrong, this basically is the most iconic panel to come out of JJK. The amount of redos I've seen of this, especially during the Prime Gojo vs. Sukuna fight era, like, this was crazy. But that face that Gojo makes, it's so strange. It's so strange. And fun. And these two are literally one chapter apart. These two drawings of Gojo are one chapter apart. It is absurd. But let's see.
To it. So this is essentially Gojo versus 15 finger Meguna, but in this
okay, so we are going with the idea that he wasn't at 20 fingers yet. He ate the fingers after Gojo got unsealed. All right, that's fine. So then I'm assuming Lumiere is going to say Gojo wins because he's 25% weaker. That makes sense. Let's see.
Hypothetical. There are a few factors that we need to address before we actually get to the fight itself. One of them being the training that Gojo did to fight Meguna. So in chapter 224, Gojo said he had undergone special training so that he can go all out on Megami. The reason being is that Gojo suspected that Meguna would have expected him to hold back because he was now in Megami's body, which doesn't seem unrealistic. Like, think about it.
Yeah, that is a thing. It is a strange thing, I will admit. Because there are two ways you can argue it. You can either argue it that, one, the special training was legit just for hitting Megami, and then in this hypothetical battle, Gojo would just get used to it over time rather than just going all out from the start, even though it's weird to argue if Gojo went all out from the start. I still think it is strange. I think Gojo fights very weirdly in the Gojo vs. Sukuna fight. But on top of that, there is the idea that maybe he got the universal reinforcement buff that everybody else got. Because we find out, at least according to Sukuna, he doesn't note this for Gojo, but then again, he also didn't fight Gojo that much and never really saw him go all out. So maybe Gojo got bulkier like everyone else did, but he's the only character who doesn't get that accolade outside of Maki, who literally can't get that accolade because she can't reinforce herself with Curse Energy. So maybe you could argue Gojo got bulkier? Maybe? I don't know. That's like the other only thing he gets over the month. Because once again, he doesn't actually come up with small ball until he's in the fight. No one told him about open barrier domains, which is still... Oh man, I have so many issues with the Yuki show, that's whatever. No one told Gojo about the open barrier domains. Choso knew they existed. He knew they existed. So did Inumaki. So did everyone else, really. No one told Gojo. No one told Gojo. We'll see.
Gojo has just been unsealed. He doesn't know anything that has happened, and now his rival is now in the body of a kid he had rescued, a student of his. This would certainly be an awkward position for Gojo, and it's a factor that might affect the way he fights, for the sole reason that if he does end up defeating Sukuna, it may be at the cost of also deleting Megami.
That is technically a thing, right? I mean, the only thing is, though, the reason I don't think it matters all too much is because Gojo, and he's even pulling up Shibuya right now, Gojo has shown that sometimes sacrifices are sacrifices. For it, Megami, that you got possessed. L plus ratio plus hollow purple, dog. Like he may just delete it, because, like, ultimately, you gotta run the cost-benefit analysis, right? Leave the King of Curses alive so he can slaughter all of humanity and eat them as he pleases. Slay some random 15-year-old you adopted for the sake of a guy who almost killed you. The humanity 15. Like, I think Gojo even makes that cost-benefit analysis in the fight, in the actual fight we see in canon, because he opens up with a 200% hollow purple and then finishes with an unlimited hollow. Something he himself wasn't even sure he was going to survive. He's like, whoa, I lived. Cool. Guess it's because of my own cursed energy. Like, that's it. He wasn't even sure he would survive that, and he hit Megami with that. That man, at some point, he did, as Kashimo said, just forget about it. And was like, man, whatever, I'm fighting Sukuna, dog. Who cares if Megami's there? And I think he'd do that eventually in this fight, too. He may go a little bit softer, maybe, but even then, it's like, debatable. I don't know. Just because Gojo's, like Mahito and Jogo note, Gojo has the potential to be ruthless, unlike a Yuji Itadori. He cannot care. That sounded weird, but it's not cannot, as in... He cannot care at all, but, like, can space not care? So he may just give Megami them back shots as long as Sukuna's inside of him. He's like, hey, sorry, Megami. Sorry, kid. In fact, I figured you'd never actually reach your potential because you're never going to tame Mahoraga on your own. You're just kind of trash. So, at least I get to fight. The 10 shadows use at their peak power. Hey, 400-year ago run back. I'll win, though. But that's the thing. We'll see.
Now, I don't think he would be holding back too much. Like, his output should be pretty much the same, but what would definitely change are his tactics, similar to how it was in Shibuya, where Gojo was kind of restricted a little bit, and it limited his moves. So I think him holding back in this context is something similar to that, but it is just vague as to what they're referring to, so I'm trying to be as realistic as I can. I do think this is an...
the big... Because, like, that's the thing. What would he hold back? He probably wouldn't hold back speed. He definitely wouldn't lower his durability. Like, there'd be no reason to do that. He wouldn't turn off infinity. I guess it would just be how he attacks. But, like, he always punches with blue. And he always just fires red. Like, maybe he wouldn't... The only thing he may not do is purple. An unlimited purple. And if he... Or unlimited hollow. And if he doesn't do that, he dies. Eventually. Slowly but surely. Sukuna's gonna wear that man down if he does not. And he may, but then again, he was willing to risk domain expansion before, so he'd probably risk it anyway. The issue is, though, that's the real question. Does Gojo ever decide to just leave this fight? Because that's a big thing that Gojo could have done at any time during the battle. The moment he got on the back foot, he didn't have to stay there. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but, like, especially once both had brain damage, and both realize, this fight may not be going my way. Like, sure, he does need to stick around because Sukuna's already adapted to Limited Void, and presumably he'd adapt to Infinity, so actually Gojo doesn't finish the fight in the main series. But, like, after the first domain clash, and Gojo recovers his technique, he could have just left and been like, whoa, I did not know you could do that. I'm gonna go think of a counter to that. Deuces, because Sukuna's gonna chase him down. But, like, good luck catching the guy who can teleport across the planet. Sukuna's fast, he ain't that fast. Gojo can run as much as he wanted. So maybe there's a point in this battle where, due to, like, the feelings of... That is a weird-looking kenjaku panel. What on earth? I never looked at this panel that hard. It looks really nasty. In fact, I'm going to stop looking at it. What is up with that panel? Does it really look like that? Ew. Hold on. I'm going to pull up a separate screen. Wait a second. Ew. Why does his face look like that? Ew. Hold on. Wait a second. Wait a minute. Let me take a look. In a book. Reading Rainbow. Hold on. Yeah. Hold on. Yeah. Hold on. Wait, like what chapter? This is 221. I never looked at Kenny's face like that. I'm sorry, this is such a random tangent to go on, but ew. His face looks horrifically disgusting. Is that actually how that panel looks? Ooh, that actually bothers me to look at. I'm gonna have to get off this pause screen for a little bit. Hold on. Gain and lost. Let me see. He comes out. Oh, yeah, it does look like that. Ew. Ew, I hate how that's drawn. I'm gonna get off that screen. That's gonna haunt my nightmares. Ugh, that looks nasty. But what was I even talking about? I completely lost the plot. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, Gojo could just run. He could just leave at any point. And like Sukuna would probably chill with it too. At this point, he's probably be like, I don't really want to fight the guy anyway. But that's the thing. He could just leave. He has no sense of this. The crowd. Go. That's the thing. When Gojo said he was a challenger, or Sukuna was a challenger, he actually started acting like the challenger. When realistically, at any point, Gojo can control the pace, the timing, the tempo of that fight by literally just leaving. So like, there's that. So if Gojo feels really uncomfortable punching Megumi for now because he hasn't done the special training, and he also feels like, I didn't know you could do the open barrier domain thing. No one told me, and I didn't see that before I got sealed. He may unironically just leave. And if Raga isn't in the shadows at that point, that's fine. They can fight later anyway. Weird hypothetical scenario, but possible.
So I'm trying to be as realistic as I can. I do think this is an important factor to consider when we actually talk about the fight. So we'll get into more details about it later on. Now this isn't really an important factor, but when they do fight, Urarame or Kenjaku might try to intervene.
They will both die. We literally see Kenny's horrified of fighting Gojo. And he'd be in the same vicinity as Sukuna. He'd be in the same vicinity as the open barrier domain he's mentioned. And Urarame would also just die. They got one shot. And we're still feeling the pain, presumably days later. Oh, in fact, that may actually confirm... Oh, wait, never mind. Yeah, it is 15 figure Sukuna. I made the mistake of a statement in the video. I didn't think of that timeline thing. Because we know in the feeding chapter, when she gives him the rest of the fingers, she's talking about the pain she still feels from Gojo's hit. So yeah, that is a 15, technically 16 finger. You think the finger transferred over from Yuji, the one he was born with, and technically was a 16 finger Sukuna at that time. So he is confirmed either 25 or 20% weaker. I forgot about that completely. So there's that correction. In fact, I recorded another video recently where I got that wrong. So I know people are going to correct me on that. But I'm glad I caught that. But let's see.
They don't make a difference. I'm telling you this right now. Kenjaku is a certified 6 eyes victim. Like, bro has been getting bodied by 6 eye users for hundreds of years. He practically admits complete inferiority to Gojo. Yeah, buddy is not posing a threat or doing anything to prevent this fight from happening or even helping Sukuna.
He's probably running. Unironically, I was talking about Gojo hypothetically running away. He's abandoning Urarame, so he's gone. He's on the other side of the map. The only reason he may stick around, unironically, the only reason he would stick around is because he'd probably be afraid of Gojo teleporting to him and killing him. Like, legit, I could see Gojo in the midst of the fight with Sukuna being like, hey, where's the guy with Geto? Oh, he's not here? 1 second, Sukuna. Clap, appear at Kenjaku's side, tear his head off, and be like, alright. Alright, now we're chilling. And then he teleports back to the Sukuna fight. That's kind of what would happen. And for Urarame, like, they literally can't even harm Gojo. We never find out if they have a domain expansion. Like, what I thought was once the domain expansion never gets confirmed to me. It's like, they just aren't doing anything. They literally cannot touch Gojo. We don't know if they have DA. Presumably they should, but we don't know if they have it. Let's see.
And Urarame, we already saw how that went. She got one tapped and then still felt the punch days after. Even though she used reverse curse technique, like, come on, they are not doing anything. But to be fair, Kenjaku is smarter than that. He knows that he would get bodied. I think he'd probably try to run off. But even so, if he runs off, the Jujutsu High squad could get him. Or if Gojo wins against Sukuna, Gojo can just teleport around and find Kenjaku and then erase him. So whatever...
Unironically, he doesn't have to teleport around. He would teleport straight to Kenjaku, because that's what he does initially. Unless you think he tried Sukuna's curse energy presence, which I don't think he did, because he's shocked by Sukuna's appearance. Like, he gets out of the prison realm, immediately locks in on Geto's cursed energy, and teleports there. Remember, he's halfway, like, when I forget what the calc is, but, like, he travels across, like, half of Japan. Because he was buried in the subjugation zone, underwater. He gets freed because of Hana's actions on the back of the prison realm. And then he immediately teleports all the way to Kenny. So he has a lock on Kenny at all times. Let's see.
Kenjaku ends up doing, it doesn't even matter because Gojo is about to be hunting him down. The other stuff that I guess are pending, like things that Gojo and Sukuna did before fighting, aren't really relevant or urgent aside from Sukuna recovering his full power. That is just a downside he'll have in this fight. Gojo, on the other hand, doesn't have the training to completely wail on Megami. Then he caught up with everyone. He got informed of everything that had happened so far. He also probably got rid of all those higher-ups too. But the point is that all of these things aren't anything of urgency. Like Gojo Sukuna said they needed to do things before they fight, but most of it aren't things that actually had urgency. Literally
the main thing for Sukuna is the finger amount. It is truly the finger amount that hurts him. Once again, with that Gege statement about the fact that Jogo would actually be something of a challenge to 5-finger Sukuna, that's a thing that does exist and is real. Missing 5 whole fingers, or the equivalent of 5 whole fingers, because the mummy plus the 4, like that is big. That is big. That is a 25% power nerf. And that's just hard confirmed. There is no... I talked about it being 50-50 at the start. I completely forgot about that Arame detail, confirming he eats the fingers and the mummy after the fight. After the encounter here. So he is 25% nerfed. And for all my Pokemon players out there, even a 1-stage stat drop can be the change between one-shotting somebody and not. Heck, a high roll versus a low roll in Pokemon can be the change between one-shotting somebody, not to talk about stat changes. So a 25% nerf, that actually is pretty hefty. And with I mean, it really depends. How much bulkier do you think Sukuna is? Or how much, if it is just 25%, how much more damage does he take? He may legit have to lock in from the start here. He may have to straight DA face tank all of what Gojo has to offer here because he can't. He doesn't have that extra 25% bulk and the extra 25% cursed energy. And that may, oh no, maybe I'm flipping back. Let's see what Lumiere says.
The only thing that is crucial is Sukuna regaining his power. This Sukuna isn't a sit and duck. He still has the 10 Shadows and Malevolent Shrine, along with immense experience and power. Even though he's weaker in finger amount, he's still the king of curses. This isn't gonna be a breeze. When Gojo fought Sukuna initially, he had the benefit of a plan to save Megami. Now, lacking that plan, Gojo is going to be hesitant, which creates a unique dynamic that wasn't present before in their original fight. This moral dilemma changes the fight's pace and allows Sukuna to exploit any indecision. The fight begins with both of them feeling each other out. Sukuna
one thing I will say though. Sukuna, with no domain, has no win con against Gojo. I mean, let me make one thing clear, because I've been glazing Sukuna a whole lot recently. So let me make one thing clear. Without domain, no low main domain, Sukuna has no win con. He cannot do enough damage to Gojo in one instance. Mahoraga can't do it. Piercing Bull can't do it. Ahito can't do it. Sukuna can't do it. I've mentioned this before. Sukuna's worst stat is his power. Magana's especially. But I say just in general, Sukuna's worst stat is... Loki's spoiling the Heian Era and Yuji Kuna video, but another thing for another time. But his worst stat is power. He does no damage to Gojo outside of Malevolent Shrine. You can double check it wrong. Even when he does domain amp in domains, it literally is basically just a defensive amp. He can touch Gojo. That's all he does. He touches him. He plays patty cake with him. That's it. He doesn't do any damage. He needs Shrine. He needs Malevolent Shrine out in active to do any real damage to Gojo. Meanwhile, Gojo, he also kind of struggles to do damage to Sukuna. But that is a Sukuna that's at 100% power, not one that's at 75% power. So essentially, think of the little damage or the baby damage that Gojo does with his regular blue punches, and think of the big damage he does with red, amplified by 25%. I think that's, I'm not sure how that math goes, but like, just think of it being even bigger. That red that Sukuna face tanks, quote unquote, when he has half his face blown off, it will do even more damage. And the black flash that he ate will do even more damage. And the blues that he took damage from, the one that like pierced his side, do even more damage. So like, it would actually be genuinely noticeable. Gojo's damage would be noticeably bigger, while Sukuna just really can't do damage outside of Shrine. He can't. So that's the thing. With that in mind, though, Sukuna may go harder on the Shrine strat and try to stick out with it. It really all depends, and I'll see what Lumiere says. It really all depends on whether or not Mahoraga is existing in the shadows and Sukuna is still going for the same thing he was in the main fight. If he is, and he's still trying to figure out a way to evolve his technique so he can do damage to Gojo with the World Slash, then maybe he plays the fight the exact same way and ends up losing because he underestimates his lack of power. But if he does take it seriously, then Gojo still runs into the issue. Even with the 25% damage buff, I still think a DA on constant in the middle of an open barriered shrine before Gojo figures out the small ball. Even once he figures out small ball, I think it'd probably be just barely enough to allow him to face tank more and more and more, and just enough that his domain never shatters. And Gojo's consistently forced into the 5-stage refresh, but Sukuna likely never gets exposed to Unlimited Void in that timeline. He never takes the brain damage, and his domain never actually shuts down. He'd still literally be on his first domain, just probably slightly altered. And thusly, Gojo dies, because he wouldn't be able to restore his brain or technique in time, because he gave himself brain damage. That's what I think, though. But let's see.
Gojo's hesitancy, leveraging the fact that he's in Megumi's body. Despite being weaker now, Sukuna capitalizes on Gojo's reluctance to use domain expansion. This shift gives Sukuna moments to land extra strikes, forcing Gojo into a more defensive playstyle. Their exchanges are quick and calculated, with Sukuna's 10 shadows playing a pivotal role in creating openings now that he needs to make up for his lost finger strength. He also starts the Mahoraga adaptation process early. As they did in their original fight, Sukuna pops domain quickly. This time around though, Gojo doesn't use Unlimited Void.
Oh, then he dies. Then he dies. That's the thing. If there's even the slightest bit of, they have to go even. They have to go. If we are assuming because of the hesitancy to hard Megami that he does not domain immediately, he's gonna die. And not even because he would immediately die in Muslin Shrine. We see at full output, Gojo he's not face taking it, but he's able to survive it. But like, if he tries a symbol domain at first to go on the defensive route, we know that shatters eventually, and then he has to be forced to domain. Or if he goes the Falling Blossom motion route, that'll slow it down, but then he's gonna have to domain. Like Gojo cannot win this battle at all. He can't even put up a fight unless he domains back. So if Lumiere is going with the idea that he wouldn't domain for Megumi's sake, oh, he's cooked. He's cooked. Let's see.
Because he thinks it might hurt Megumi. Instead, he summons Simple Domain, which allows him to defend against Malevolent Shrine more efficiently than last time due to Sukuna's reduced power. Even so,
that's true. The reduced power would actually help a little bit. But that just means it would take 25% longer to break down, but it would still eventually break down. That's the thing. The reduced power, it wouldn't be as much, but it still would break down eventually. But that's true. I keep forgetting about the reduced power aspect, because I had the idea that maybe it was a 50-50 in my head for so long. But let's see.
Realizes playing defense the whole time is not sustainable. Now, the biggest fight in history is happening. The Jujutsu High Squad take notice of the fight due to the immense aura of curse energy oozing from Gojo and Sukuna.
I love that word, bro. Two of my favorite words ever: bombastic and oozing. Not ooze. Ooze itself was kind of funny because of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but when someone says, yo, bro, I'm oozing excitement, I'm like, you're oozing what? Oozing what? Where? Don't get it on me. I'm glad you're happy, bro. I'm glad you're happy to see me, but I don't want you to be that happy. Stop it. Oh, sorry. Let's see.
And the help of Mei-Mei's crows. They pull up to watch, and they reassure Gojo via megaphone that they have a plan to save Megumi. Obviously,
But they won't, though. Crazy thing is, they won't. Not at this time. Because remember, the plan to save Megumi, Yuki's reading of the Soul Book, all that happened after Gojo was unsealed. We see this over the one time skip. Yuji hasn't done any switch training yet to get any domain principles down. He likely doesn't have the gauntlets from Yuta just yet. Though Yuta could probably, if he had those stored in Rika the entire time, he could probably still give Yuji the... It happened again. What is it? Is it the time limit? What causes that? I don't know why. Hi, I'm widescreen. Sorry for that the screen went black randomly. I don't know why it does that. I literally have no clue. I'm going to have to look up how to fix that. Because that's still so weird. Because I know I can't alter the camera. Let me see. Let me see. It does absolutely nothing, so no. So yeah, sorry. We're going to be small now. Welcome to small pencil land. But that's the thing. No Yuji prep for soul dismantling. So they have no way to save Megami at that point. I think legit, because there isn't enough time, especially now knowing when the Urami scene takes place. There's likely not enough time for them to have already developed the soul saving plan for Megami. So they don't actually have a plan to save Megami at all. Them getting even close to the battle could end up in their death, depending on if Sukuna's domain is open at that time, at full 200 meter range. And that's about it. They likely haven't figured out the Higuruma plan yet, because I was playing over the one time skip. They likely haven't figured out the Yuta domain plan. He probably hasn't even eaten Hana's arm just yet. That seems to also have taken place over the time skip. A lot of stuff happens in that one time skip. That's why we keep getting those flashbacks during the Shinjuku Showdown. I actually think they're cooked. Because they were not ready for this. So, yeah, I don't think so. But, obviously, Lumiere's going with the idea that they do. I wonder if that'll change anything. Let's see. Maybe he assumes they yell it over the megaphone. Gojo hears it, and then he domains back. But at that point, he's already taking hits from Malevolent Shrine. He's already pushing himself. But let's see.
They don't tell him what it is because Sukuna's right there, but they reassure him that like, yo, we got this covered, just beat him. And this frees Gojo from his moral hesitation. Now Gojo feels free to go all out. Gojo re-engages Sukuna in a clash of domains. Due to Sukuna's experience, Gojo's domain is destroyed from the outside. Gojo again summons Simple Domain. Except this time, Sukuna can't press him as much since Gojo isn't holding back anymore. As Sukuna's onslaught finishes, Gojo and Sukuna clash again. This time, Gojo changed the conditions of his domain to make it stronger from outside attacks. In the original fight, the clash between Gojo and Sukuna was even, but this time around, it's not even anymore because Sukuna is weaker. Before Sukuna could destroy Gojo's domain from outside, which is harder to do now, Gojo is now winning the clash inside the barrier and is pressed.
Ooh, that's true. Ooh, that's true. Once again, that 20. I keep forgetting all that 25% debuff. Ooh. Ooh. Wait a minute. The plot just thickened. Well, actually, you know what? Here we go. I know the Gojo is gonna be like, oh, here he goes, slopping his glorious game. No, wait a minute. You know what the crazy thing is? I think Unlimited Void sure hit would still cancel out. No, hear me out. I know that he's weaker now, so it just shouldn't work, right? Hold on 1 second. Boom. There we go. Sorry, I had to take care of something real quick. But if you remember, domains do not have to be equal in refinement, and curse energy amounts don't actually have to be even for domains to cancel out their sure hits. Because if you'll remember, all the way back in Shibuya, Megami ends up canceling out Dagon's sure hit by simply opening his domain at the same time. Remember? They end up canceling out. Dagon can no longer use a sure hit. He can still use everything else available to him in his arsenal, but he can't use his sure hit because that's canceled out by Megami's domain simply existing. I think the same thing would happen here with Sukuna. They wouldn't be evenly matched, quote unquote, as in they were perfectly even in power, but due to Sukuna's sure hit still being active inside of Gojo's barrier, it would probably still neutralize, at least if we're assuming that the domain rules are consistent. But with that being the case, if we're assuming the domain rules are consistent, Gojo and Sukuna, while they're outliers everywhere else, they aren't outliers in terms of how the universe functions in its domain rules and domain cancellation, then everything would still be canceled out. And Sukuna would still have access to his technique. Ew! I didn't realize, well, that looks a lot less ugly, but this is actually still ugly too. Why have I not noticed all these ugly faces in this showdown? But, whatchamacallit? Thanks to that, we may still be in the same scenario. And once again, if Sukuna is weaker here and he notices that, like, Gojo has the edge, he's probably immediately in the middle of fighting Gojo. He's probably boom, 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 and immediately sending out a slash towards the inside of Gojo's barrier to shatter it. Immediately. And another thing he may do at that point when Gojo's barrier shatters from the inside this time, it would likely burst, shatter, and then Sukuna, knowing that he's now weaker, would probably immediately put his hands on Gojo and try and do everything in his power to stop him from opening another domain. If that involves super barraging him, because notably, remember, we never see Gojo get hit by Cleave and Dismantle at the same time. When the domain is acting on Gojo, it's only acting as Cleave, which is auto-adjusting to his durability, but he's already at max RCT output. But then again, that's when the slashes were 25% stronger because Sukuna's at full output. So Gojo may be eating the slashes just a bit better here, but the issue is Sukuna could then start chanting and pumping Dismantles specifically into Gojo's hands. And remember, Sukuna doesn't actually need to move to do that. So he could be chanting with his mouth and then guiding slashes if he wants to for extra potency, because we know guiding and showing your hand in Jujutsu does give you a buff, or just straight railing, firing, and consistently aiming at Gojo's hands. So even once he restores his technique through the brain restoration thing, he can't because his hands aren't fully healed. So Sukuna, it will take a lot more pressure, but it could still happen. But of course, that's going under the assumption that their sure hits cancel out. If they don't, and you think that Sukuna's sure hit gets overpowered by Gojo's, we don't go with the idea that they both cancel out, because even if there's a massive disparity in terms of curse energy amount and refinement, as we saw in the Megami versus Dagon main clash, Gojo and Sukuna are both the exceptions, so Sukuna just gets completely overridden and completely outdone, then Gojo wins immediately, because the Unlimited Void Sukuna. But if that doesn't happen, and they cancel out, then I can still see Sukuna winning, if only by consistently putting the pressure on Gojo. He would have to. He cannot let Gojo get that back up. You cannot let Gojo figure out small ball in this timeline because of the weakened output of everything with the 25% debuff. Let's see.
Sukuna. Sukuna is struggling to maintain his domain, and as Gojo thinks that Sukuna's domain is going to get destroyed, Sukuna summons Mahoraga, who at this point has adapted to Unlimited Void, due to the domain itself being pretty simple.
Is it though? It took a while. It took a hot minute. Low Kizzle? Because what? It was like 3 domain classes. Because it was the first one, Mahoraga is getting fed information. There's the second one, Mahoraga is getting fed information. And then the third one, the Mahoraga is getting fed information. Then it's, I think, on Gojo's 5th one, right? It's Gojo's 5th or 4th one that Mahoraga pops out fully adapted. So I think only after, what, 2 domain scenarios? I don't think Mahoraga will be fully adapted. I think Mahoraga may... Y'all smell that? Is that a red victim? Like maybe Mahoraga could probably get stunned at least a little bit, because the phenomena, he hasn't had enough time to adapt to it yet. Unlimited Void is pretty complicated. That's why Sukuna hid Mahoraga in the shadows and was like, hey, I want to take that card off the table. So like, I don't know. So Lumiere is going with the idea that would be adapted to. So it looks like he may still be leaning towards Sukuna winning. All right, let's see.
And that he was exposed to it twice. Sukuna was hoping to adapt fully to Gojo. He had no other choice than to summon Mahoraga now. But this decision makes Mahoraga vulnerable to being destroyed before he could adapt to Gojo. Gojo knows about Mahoraga and recognizes that he needs to end the fight soon before Mahoraga adapts. Mahoraga destroys Unlimited Void. Now, Gojo can't use Domain, because it's just gonna get countered by Mahoraga. Sukuna can, but it isn't a good idea because Gojo can overpower him and destroy the domain anyways. Sukuna also summons Agito to keep Gojo busy, so Sukuna doesn't absorb all the damage. Also a good idea because it's just gonna get countered by Mahoraga. Sukuna can, but it isn't a good idea because Gojo can overpower him and destroy the domain anyways. Sukuna...
But, I mean, really, because remember, it's not just Gojo can't use domain, he can't use techniques. So in that moment, if Sukuna had, like, all the shit, it would be crazy. Sukuna could just start wilding on Gojo. In that short interval where Shrine is still up, because Mahoraga came out early and popped the Limited Void, remember, Sukuna can use 2 techniques at that point. So in that moment, especially if he's, like, extra worried because he's in the shadows and he's prepping heavily, then he may summon that gargantuan Nue and just have it start striking lightning bolts down on Gojo. He may summon, or Ahito, and have it striking down lightning bolts on that Gojo. He may straight decide to let Piercing Bull out and send it at Gojo, or he may have had it running in the shadows, like on a as who said it? Someone said it perfectly in like one of my previous videos. Like, just put Mahoraga on, or put the Piercing Bull on a treadmill and let it get infinite AP. That could happen. He lets it out and it just tackles Gojo, or even anything. Remember, anything could just start hunting and holding Gojo down. Well, he has no technique. He can't do anything about that. And remember, Simple Domain, while it can cancel out curse techniques, it doesn't seem like it'd be as effective as something like Domain Amp. So it may genuinely end up being the case where this man Gojo may actually be overwhelmed by the 10 shadows and Shrine acting on him all at the same time, and he cannot heal his hands in time or heal his full body in time to get up his domain expansion once again to clash with Sukuna. And once again, with Mahoraga out, as long as Sukuna doesn't put Mahoraga on the front line and risk destroying the 10 shadows, Mahoraga can insta-pop any Unlimited Void in this scenario that Lumiere set up. So I don't know. It's still gonna end up being real devious, dangerous, and diabolical for a certain 6-size limitless user. We'll see.
Sukuna also summons Agito to keep Gojo busy, so Sukuna doesn't absorb all the damage and to absorb any attacks that could potentially one-shot Mahoraga, since Gojo has the edge now, which makes sense since originally they were comparable. Now that Sukuna is weaker in finger amount, it just follows that Gojo's gonna have the edge. The battlefield becomes a hand-to-hand combat arena. Gojo's skill and talent shines as he lands a Black Flash on Agito, temporarily stunning him. Sukuna's confidence wavers as Gojo's intensity grows. Now the gap between Gojo and Sukuna has become even bigger since Gojo is Black Flash Amp. The tide turns as Gojo summons blue and red in preparation for a devastating purple. This is Gojo at his peak. His attacks perfectly timed and calculated. Gojo's magnum opus arrives as he combines his techniques into purple, much like the one he did originally in 235. The precision and speed were too much. Sukuna, Mahoraga, and Agito were unable to react in time. Purple vaporizes.
He may just die here. Megano would probably die here. With a 25% debuff and with how much damage that purple did originally, he died. And Mahoraga isn't adapted to Shrine yet. He hasn't pulled out World Slash yet. He died. Yeah, Sukuna dies.
Mahoraga and Agito, dealing much more damage to Sukuna than it originally did because of the missing fingers. So much damage that Sukuna cannot continue the fight. Gojo has won, but he knows the fight isn't truly over until Sukuna is extracted from Megami. The Jujutsu High Squad joins forces to extract Sukuna out of Megami's body. They hit him with Jacob's Ladder, and Sukuna peels off Megami's body. As Gojo went to finish off Sukuna, someone had beat him to it. Kashimo stood in front of Sukuna, disappointed that he never got the fight he wanted, telling Sukuna that he should have won. He uses a lightning strike and evaporates Sukuna. Now realistically, I think it is kind of obvious that Gojo would have won because him and Sukuna were clashing evenly at full power. So if he
Okay, I mean, I'm fine with this outcome. The only things that I'll say, you can definitely argue the domains wouldn't actually, like, really end in Gojo's favor anyway, even with the power debuff. There's also another way you can argue it. If you think that the cursed energy amount that can be forced into a domain to maintain it is finite, it's finite and limited, and thusly it doesn't necessarily matter as per your output because your domain can only reach a certain level of efficacy. For example, we find out later on in the Shinjuku Showdown that Sukuna can cast his domain as many times as he needs, even though his cursed energy amounts have dropped to around half. He's only around Yuta levels of cursed energy. He can cast his domain an infinite amount of times, as many times as he needs, is what the narrator says definitively. So if that's the case, then it likely means that unless you think 25% of his output limits even the domain, even though the domain has a set amount of cursed energy that can be fueled into it, then the domain actually wouldn't really change all too much because of the refinement and power force behind it. Because you can only put so much energy into something, but then again, that could be the output limit. So there definitely is still the argument that Sukuna's domain would still cancel out Gojo's, except just the sure hits would cancel out, and maybe Sukuna would get less of a domain buff. And then it doesn't lead the way that Lumiere says it, but that's one hypothetical argument on one interpretation of domains. If you go with the other idea that Sukuna's domain would just be 25% weaker because he's missing 4 fingers and the mummy, then there's the case. And ultimately, he still ends up losing. Thing is, though, I mean, like, especially considering we see Goda does a domain clash with a much weaker Sukuna, who has his soul nerfed to oblivion, still has brain damage, is using new pathing, and they still cancel each other out for the 3 minutes? I don't know, I think it's a little bit too solid. I think the domain clashes end still in Sukuna's favor, just because of how we see it happen with Goda. Because we know Goda had pulled off the small ball domain counter perfectly. It was purple that he messed up on. So, if that's meant to be the exact same, I don't know, because technically that is a Sukuna with less fingers and less output because he's been nerfed heavily by Yuji at that point, has been hit with Jacob's Ladder, has taken a whole bunch of damage, has brain damage, his new path and everything. I don't know. I may have to redo the video for just me, myself, and my own channel, and talk about it more in depth. Even more in depth than here. I've been yapping for a minute now. Jeez, 43 minutes. But that's my only thing. I can still see Sukuna eking out a dub there, even with the 25% debuff. And also, there are 2 things I don't think happen. I don't think Jujutsu High gets there in time, because how are they going to get there? The Gojo vs. Sukuna fight in universe isn't actually that long. It's at most 25 minutes. Remember, the Jujutsu High crew was on the other side. Like, they were nowhere near where this battle would actually be taking place. They only got there that fast because they were watching nearby in Rika. That's the only reason they got there. They don't have teleporters. Oh, actually, Uui could actually bring him there. Never mind. Uui could bring him there. So that's wrong. They could get there. But at this point, I think just based on how we see the series unfold, we know for a fact that they haven't come up with a plan to save Megami. So even if they do show up there, they'd just be fodder to be destroyed. Because no one has gotten their time skip buffs. And they wouldn't have a plan to save Megami just yet. Because Yuji wouldn't have read the soul book and determined a hypothetical plan that may have worked. And they wouldn't have been able to, I don't think they'd be able to get that information in Gojo while he's literally fighting for his life. So honestly, still in my opinion, this becomes a genuine 50-50. It really depends on how you interpret certain things about this matchup and interpret Sukuna's own ideas and how he uses domain amp versus how he doesn't. How Gojo, like he mentioned, Gojo's mood and mentality going into the fight, whether or not he is actually able to fully wail on Megami from round start or he's not. Like there definitely is a lot more chaos in this matchup. So I will probably just end up making my own video on this. But Lumiere made a W video. And I do like the narrative he spins here. That's the thing. I like the narrative of Gojo fighting Sukuna reluctantly, maybe accidentally killing Kenjaku and Arame, or them escaping or being nearby and then getting killed by the battle itself. And then the Jujutsu Haiku showing up being like, "You can do it, Gojo! We have a plan!" Even if I don't think they should have a plan by the timeline stuff of it. And then Gojo locking in, domaining, and then they go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then Gojo, thanks to the 25% power debuff, ends up breaking through the domains and has a domain advantage. Then he hits the Black Flash, and hitting the Black Flash on Aito into completely dominating Sukuna after the fact, because then he gets a 20% buff, the 120% Black Flash buff, while Sukuna's still only at 75% because of the missing fingers, and then he steamrolls into that. Like that is a really cool way to spin that narrative. So I love how Lumiere spun that narrative here, and it does make sense. And hey, you know, can't say I'm not happy to get my glorious blue-eyed king a dub. I can't even sit here and lie to you about that. So I'll take it. What do you guys think? Well, let me get to the end of the video before I start asking what you guys think and what I got wrong or what I didn't get wrong. Let me see.
If you take away Sukuna's strength, Gojo would obviously just dominate. But I feel like
there is for that bit. Oh well, Sukuna's weak. He was, according to Gojo, he was apparently holding back. You think he's holding back stats? 25% of his stats? Who knows? But like, I know there are gonna be some Sukuna fans in the comments that will be like, "Well, he was holding back against Gojo already, so maybe he just had to be forced to really go all out this time against Gojo." There's that. Let's see.
Strictly power scaling it that way would have been boring. So I think this way was much more interesting to actually walk through the fight and see the differences instead of just saying, "Yeah, Gojo's stronger." If you guys enjoyed this video,
ooh, I need to react to that video too. What if Akari knew to switch colonies? I get to glaze my glorious King Ryu Shigori, and Akari can do actually no damage to him. Ooh, I like that. Oh, that gets my toes curling. But that aside, let me let the rest of the video play out a little bit.
Make sure to like and subscribe. If you guys have any video ideas, make sure to let me know in the comments. And if I do your idea, you will be shouted out in that video.
I need to give Lumiere an idea. I need to think of one. But W video, undeniably. I like the narrative he spun. I like the editing. Man, Lumiere's a PJJ content creator. Like, I don't know what y'all do. Come on now. He's peak. But that being the Kase, please check out the link to the original video. It'll be in the description down below, and I'll link to Lumiere's channel. If you've made it all the way to the end of this video, please do me a favor and leave the strongest in history. Leave the strongest in history. I know it's like a whole statement / whole sentence, but leave that in the comment section down below. And thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do happen to have a Patreon down below, or you can support me for as low as $1 a month. Things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. Also, now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. So those perks include the live reactions for the series I am to review, ad variations of all my videos, and if you become a $25 patron or a $25 member, you can order whatever video you want. Also, I do have a link to my Ko-Fi and description down below, where you can drop 5 beans for a short video, 25 beans for a long video, or any beans at all. Any support is always greatly appreciated. Now, I'd like to thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dak the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our sketch tier members: Greyhound, Eternal Flame, Red Wolf 4765, Astro, Super Flame Zero, Glacier, XZ, G Prosper, Zeta, and Brandon Payne. Then I'd like to give a thank you to our line art tier patrons: Sean, Midnight Lord 21, Kevin, Encarnacion, and A+A. And then I'd like to give a huge thank you to our ink tier members: Fine, Austin Wimberly, Euchiha, Yuki Ally, and Carlo Alaimo. Then I'd like to give a gargantuan thank you to our digital art tier members: J Warrior and AZ Void. Then I'd like to give another gargantuan thank you to our colored art tier patron: Waki Minoz, and Idemokami. Then I'd like to give a final legendary top of the line thank you to our That Guy with a Pencil tier patron, the glorious king, Calvin Elder.